leg of newt, and eye of toad. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit of man. You're very welcome to the Brendan Option. Coming to you, courtesy of Immaculata Productions, I'm Father Brendan Kilcoyne. If you like our work, would you please commit assault and battery on the subscribe button? It's free. Also, most welcome to send us a few quid on Patreon or PayPal. Constructive comments in the comments box. Please keep us in your prayers. We've just got over Halloween. And as usual, there are a whole load of dodgy and dubious celebrations and dodgier decorations, most of it imported from the United States in the last 40 years. This trick-or-treating and all of that, none of it having any basis in our Irish culture. But anyway, I suppose if you've no ideas, you borrow somebody else's. Every year this happens, believers talk, sometimes in shocked tones, more often than not in just exasperation, about this kind of do-it-yourself amateur paganism that goes on around Halloween. I refuse to see it as something sinister in itself, although I do admit, I certainly can't rule out that it may function for some people as a bit of a very mild gateway drug into something worse. But I've talked about that elsewhere, the whole occult thing, and I'm not going there today. Strange as you may find it to hear me saying this, I see something positive at the root of these gangs of young people wandering around town setting off firecrackers and bangers, which are illegal, and generally celebrating something they hardly understand. As I was trying to get back into my house last night, having as usual put the keys in a pocket I couldn't remember, a group of young lads were passing by the hedge, shouting at each other and everything, and one of them saw me and shouted in across the hedge, "How's it going? Happy Halloween." And I said, without much conviction, "Happy Halloween." What was he wishing me? He's a nice kid, civil kid, well brought up. What was he wishing me? Like, what was all the celebration about? I'd say if you were to ask any of those kids, they'd have only the dimmest understanding of what Halloween is or where it comes from. Its pagan roots, which makes sense if you think of it, the onset of winter, you could see. Consider, for instance, the societies that produced these things knew what pure dark was. If we live anywhere near even a small town, you don't really know what an unpolluted night sky looks like, or what an unpolluted dark looks like. You probably don't know nowadays what silence sounds like. Just consider how complicated, cluttered we've made our environments. In order to really mark this dark passage from life into death, from summer through autumn, via autumn, into winter, which is a natural thing for human beings to do, to make ceremony, to make some sacred ceremony, to mark this significant change that everyone somehow recognizes. I suppose what do we do? We've chucked in the church. We don't have Christian reflexes. We don't have an educated, how would you put it, refined liturgical sense of how to mark these things anymore. So we go back to our pagan roots, but sure, our pagan roots are only dimly understood and half known. The old peasantry died out in the 70s in Ireland. So what do? A bit like the Japanese apparently imported whole sections out of the Swiss Civil Code. You just cog it, as we used to say. You cut and paste. You just raid somebody else's culture, as we've done. We've taken from the predominant culture, and with all due respect to the Americans, and that respect is absolutely real. I think both the Irish and the Americans would benefit more if the culture we were raiding was the English or the French cultures, to be honest, or the Italian or the Spanish cultures. American culture, as it's been marketed worldwide, is really a sort of safe version of a kind of cultural minestrone soup, a kind of spiritual sherry that has been arrived at historically in America, a country made up of many cultures. Those kids are trying to celebrate something. Those kids are somehow trying to express joy. They're trying to express their joy at being with each other and enjoying each other. They want to somehow experience the edge. I saw a group of them running from a perfectly well-behaved Garda car yesterday. You'd swear that they had great notions of themselves. The guards hadn't the slightest interest and drove past them on their way to more interesting business. And quite rightly, because the lads weren't doing any harm, although they seemed to think that they were very mad, bad and dangerous to know. But wouldn't we all like to feel a bit like that? So what are they at out there? Happy Halloween. What are they at out there? I put it to you as the Greek philosophers told us, as the Catholic theologians tell us, we all aim towards the good and the true and the beautiful, towards God, in a word. We all want to be happy. And human beings cannot be happy without relating. Relating to each other in particular times and places. And the ultimate other is God. And if you take God from them, they will invent fairies and monsters. I don't think this is rocket science. So I'm watching bemusedly a country which has recently jettisoned 1,500 years of culture, of doctrinal, philosophical, spiritual, cultural heritage. 1,500 years jettisoned. Where we have gone back to the year zero in some respects. And we don't seem to have much appetite for it, and we're just importing whole gobfuls of other secular cultures. And now we're here like a young calf just born, trying to make our way on unsteady legs, clumsily trying to be pagans that we've long forgotten. This is an unnecessary journey. Make it if you must. Make it if you must, and maybe in another few hundred years your descendants will know how to behave like authentic barbarians. By all means do it. I would suggest that you take the shortcut, that you go back to what is still reasonably well remembered, because that's what you'll arrive at anyway after a few hundred years. And your descendants, your successors, will wonder why so much work had to be put into recovering what was thrown out. I just put that to you. I don't find those kids wondering. They're a bit of a nuisance, maybe. It went on a bit long and the dogs got frightened with all the bangers. But I don't find them ridiculous. There is something to be marked here. They understood that. There was something to be celebrated and maybe even something to be feared. They understood that. God loved them because they have been left with no language in which to express it with any precision or elegance or truth. Welcome to modern Ireland. Don't mind, just go to America. Get the real thing.